Shabbat Shalom, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are Friday afternoon, Erev Parashat Shelah-leha, one of the most fascinating parashiot that talks about, of course, the Miragelim. But today I would like to focus about the difference between the spies of Moshe Rabbeinu and the spies of Yoshua. You know that the Haftarah of this week's parasha, Parashat Shelah-leha, discusses the other time in history where Yoshua sends the spies a second time, 40 years later, to go into the land of Israel in order to spy again. And there's a striking difference between the two. One is a success story, and this week's parasha is not. But there's another connection between the Haftarah and the parasha, and I would like to share this with you. This is a thought from Rabbi Leibovitz, who was the Mashgiach of the Mir Yeshiva, who passed away in 1936 in Europe. So the spies were originally outstanding individuals. Kulam anashim, the pasuk says. But they were lacking in faith. Although they saw everything in Egypt, they experienced the biggest miracles that the Torah ever talks about. They heard God's voice in the Har Sinai. And they were great individuals. They were lacking in emunah. They thought that God could not protect the Jewish people if they entered the land of Canaan. Whatever pshat you want to say, there was something lacking in their level of emunah. But there's a striking contrast between the parasha and the Haftarah. In the Haftarah, Yoshua sends some people to be the spies, and they were sent to the city of Yericho. Where do they stay? Famously in the house of Rahav Hazonah, Rahav the harlot. We're talking about the harlot who is willing to risk her life against the local Canaanite ruler because she's giving food and she's providing a crucial information to her guests that she doesn't know. Why? Because she's a tremendous level of emunah in the God of Israel. When you read the story, you are struck by the level of emunah of this zona, this harlot, and the level of emunah which is low of the anashim, of the 12 people who were great people. 2 only made it, but 10 were low in emunah. How could that be? How could it be possible? And by the way, this is the point that Rabbi Yerucham says why we bring both stories. Not because they were spies, but because the level of emunah of great people went down, and the level of emunah of a harlot, Goya, that later converted to Judaism, but was high. How could that be? How is it possible to have these two things? The contrast is so interesting. Rabbi Yerucham says the following. He says, the way you judge a person is not where he is, but what direction he is headed. If he's headed up or if he's headed down. You could sometimes find someone who's very distinguished, but headed in the wrong direction. Could be beginning to fray at the edges. On the other hand, you could have someone who is a low level, but is inspired, is working, is headed up rather than headed down. That person's potential is much greater than the first person who is headed down. And that is enough to celebrate. That's what the Torah cares about. Not where we are, not what level we are at, but what direction we're taking. Exactly like when you're driving. You could be near your destination, but you're going the wrong direction, you're going far away from the destination. But if you're far away from the destination, but you are going in the right direction, you will eventually make it to the destination. He gives an example. He says, let's say you have a business venture that you want to do, and you have 2 choices. Either to go into business with a very established person, but although made a lot of money and has been very successful, he has made some mistakes in the past few ventures. Or the other option is a young person, a go-getter, someone who has not done much in his life, but has fire and wants to move further, starting to show some great abilities. Which one should you take as a partner? The rich guy who is starting to go down, or the young man who is starting to go up? Rabbi Yerucham says, I have a prediction that this is the second individual that should be going into business with. The Chavazona, you're better off with the Chavazona than with the Anashim Meragelim. And therefore, the Torah here is focusing. It's a great musar for us. Which direction are we taking? Are we taking the direction of Avodat Hashem? Or are we taking the direction of going the other way around? It doesn't matter at what level we are. What does matter is what direction we are going to. Shabbat Shalom.